When you want to reconstruct a scene in 3D space, so you can place a layer in this scene to make it look as if it belongs here as well, you use the camera tracker. The camera tracker will automatically track points in the scene, so you don't have to set them manually. In this example, we have a scene that was shot on a crane. If I play this now, you'll see the cranes going down. And let's say we want to place something in this scene in front of this wall. Well, for that, I'm just going to go and track the camera by clicking on the Track Camera button. This is going to first analyze it in the background. What After Effects means by analyzing in background is that you can go back and work on something else while this is working on this. If I now go to face tracking, for example, I can work on this, and it's still happening in the background. If I go back to it, it might have finished. There we go, it's actually just solving the camera now, so it's about to finish. Now, if I go back to the beginning, and if I scrub through the timeline like this, you see some track points all around these little crosshairs. These are called the track points. If I now keep scrubbing, and they'll appear and disappear from time to time. And some of them appear too tiny, like these, and some of them appear huge, like these. This is actually tracking this woman here, and we don't want it to track the woman, but that's fine. We're just going to use the ones that we actually need, so I'm going to rewind. And the track points on the walls are the ones I'm interested in, but I can't see them quite clearly because they're too tiny. So if I go to the Effect Controls panel on the left, inside the 3D camera tracker, I can increase the track point size. It makes all these crosshairs much larger. It doesn't actually change anything, it just makes them easier to see. And you may have noticed as I was dragging my cursor around, there's a target that follows my cursor. Let's say, for example, you want to place something on the floor. Well, you want to make sure that the target is flat on the floor like this. If you want to place something on the wall, you just move your cursor somewhere here so that the target is flat on the wall. And you want to find the point where the target is perfectly flat. So you don't want to use a point like this, for example. That's not going to work. So you want to find a point where the target looks more natural, like this. And basically, it happens based on the triangulation of 3 points by default. So it uses, in this case, if I just go and click here, it uses that point, and that point. Let me zoom in. So it only uses those 3 points to place the target. If I don't like it, I can just click outside and reposition the target anywhere I like. And it keeps snapping around. Or, if I just go and do a marquee selection like this, it will use all these points now to place the target there. The more of those points you have on one surface, the more precise your target is likely to be. So right now, I've selected all these points. And if I don't want a specific point to be selected, I can just go and press Command and then deselect it, like this. Let's say I want to place an object on here. Now that I'm happy with the position of the target, all I have to do is to go and right-click on the target, and then it gives us some options. We can create on this target a text layer and a camera. We can create a solid layer and a camera. We can create a null and a camera. Or we can create what's called a shadow catcher and a camera and a light. For now, I'm just going to go and create a solid and a camera. And what this does now is if I go click outside to deselect everything, is to create a solid there. And it also creates a camera. And if I play this, let me just go back to the beginning. And if I press Shift / to zoom out, if I play this, the solid will appear as if it belongs there. Look, it will move together with the camera. It changes in perspective, it changes its size because it goes away from the camera, and it changes in rotation as well as the camera rotates. And that is a pretty decent track. The solid sticks there, like I said, as if it belongs there. Let's see how this is built. Let me come out of this active camera and then go back to, let's say, my custom view. What's happening here is that this is the camera that we created, and the camera is actually going to follow the path that the actual camera was following. If I go back, let me just change my angle here by using my unified camera tool. So this is, let me just zoom in a bit more. So this is where the actual camera was on the crane. And if you remember the scene, the crane was actually kind of coming down gradually. Let's go to 2 views so we can compare them. I can make the left view my active camera. So have a look at what the crane does here. So it just comes down gradually as it tilts up. And that's exactly what this camera here is doing as well. Have a look. As this crane here on the left comes down and the camera tilts up, this camera here comes down and it starts tilting the head up. Look. So this camera here is simulating exactly what the real camera here was doing. That's what the 3D camera tracker does. It just simulates a real life camera. Let me change my views back to 1 view, and then I'll go to the active camera. And of course we can replace the solid with something else. So let's go to the project panel. and I'll go to the footage folder, and there's a file here that I have. It's called cracks.jpg. Now, if I select any layer in the timeline, this is how you replace something that's on the timeline with something that's inside the project panel. You select the layer in the timeline, and then you drag the clip that you want to replace that with on top of it. But before you let go of your mouse, you press the Alt key on the keyboard, and then you let go of your mouse. That's how you replace a layer in the timeline with one from the project panel. Now I got this file here. If I now go back and play, you see the cracks remain there perfectly. I can of course go and make some further changes to this. If I go select the cracks, maybe I can scale this down like that. And of course I can rotate these as well if I open up the rotation or the orientation in this case. I can orient this on the Z a little bit, like that. And let's say we want to get rid of the grays here, so we are left only with the cracks. And I can do that by going to the layer mode here and change it from normal to something like soft light. And now you can see that the grays have disappeared and we are left just with the cracks. Of course, you can now go and scale this up. And then reposition this in 3D space by using the arrows here. I'm going to hold down the Shift key so it goes faster. And then if I go back and play it, you'll see the cracks are going to remain there throughout the entire clip. Of course, when these two characters get in the way, we have to go and mask them, starting with their heads, so that they appear as if they're in front of the wall, not behind it. And I can do that easily by selecting my base layer, and then duplicating it, and then I drag this all the way to the top, and we can rename this to be masked. I can then get my pen tool, and maybe let's start with this woman's head. I'll just go and mask this. Just gonna go around, back to her shoulder as well. I'll come around, back to where I started from. So she appears to be in front of those cracks. If I now click outside, and of course we can add some feather by pressing F, and then I can change this to, let's say, 3. So that's gonna make the edges a little softer. And I can do the same for this woman as well. I can just go create one more mask here. I'm gonna go around there. And I'll add some feather to this one as well. So if I click outside, it appears as if they're in front of the wall there. Of course, this is only happening for one frame, so if I go forwards or backwards, you'll see that the masks are going to remain there, and then they'll walk off. So what we would need to do really would be to go in, and then keyframe the mask path for both of these masks. So I'd go keyframe this mask path, then go forward by one frame, and then move the mask again on top of her head, and then do the same again for this one until the end of the clip, and then from here, I would rewind back until they're clear away from the wall. Of course, there are many different ways we can make this scene look more realistic. But my aim in this lesson was to show you the basics of the 3D camera tracker, and hopefully you now understand how powerful the 3D camera tracker can be.